It is difficult to guess by looking at the pictures of women holding guns, alcohol from modern lifestyle and modern Israel that this country has been built on centuries of suffering, trouble, and a history drenched in blood. In fact, Israel is the only country in the world on which the secret is that before the 1940s, the Jews were scattered in different corners of the world, especially Europe, which had become their home. But the way Hitler's actions in World War II brutally killed the Jews and in any country, did not make any special effort to save them. Then in such a situation, people raise the demand of their country where they can live peacefully and give a secure future to the coming generation. When millions of Jews were killed during Hitler's rule, Europe, especially these people from Germany, turned towards a small region situated in the Mediterranean Sea which was called Palestine. Jewish from Africa, Europe, and other parts of the world now started moving towards the first stand. At this time, there was a dream in their eyes to have their own land, to be among their own people, and to create their own country where their fate would not be written in the hands of the Europeans. But the question arises that why did the youth from all over the world move towards Palestine, and why did they call this small country their own? Let us go to understand the history of Jewish and the story of Israel. The story begins in the pages of history. About 4,000 years ago, both of them had a Mesopotamian civilization where idol worship was promoted. At this time, there was no specific religion here and the society evolved. During this period, Hazrat Ibrahim was born here, due to which Abraham started a religion. His descendants gave birth to Judaism and Islam. However, Hazrat Ibrahim gradually moved to the land of Canaan, which is a part of Israel and Palestine in the present days. And he started giving religious education to the people. He established a religion which was named Judaism. Ibrahim's followers were called Judas. Ibrahim's two sons, one Ismail and the other Isaac, even during his time, they also followed Judaism, and their followers were also very numerous. Increased in number, but later on Aisha's path led them to Christianity when the Jews in Israel and it is known that he took forward Islam, but then he married 4 times, due to which he had 12 sons who formed 12 different tribes and started ruling. One of these sons was born to him. It was he who established Judaism for the first time here. But in the past, with time, there was a terrible famine here, due to which the Jewish people gradually started migrating to the surrounding countries. In those days, most of the Jews used to make settlements in Egypt and used to live in groups. That is why they were always ahead in business. Now the king started getting scared. He felt that if the number of Jews continues to increase like this, then the day is not far when these people will capture Egypt and start running their rule. Their increasing population and prosperity started making the king there restless. Soon the king there gave such an order to stop the Jewish effect in the family, hearing which everyone got goosebumps. The king ordered the killing of all the Jews, men and children, who started pushing these women into childbirth. Due to this, not only the population of the Jews in the valley increased in the initial days, but many Jews now tried to flee to other states. During this time, Hazrat Musa was born in the Jews' family of Egypt, who collected the just living in Egypt with great difficulty, and after crossing the difficult path came back to Israel with his just convoy. After this, Moses was seen as a religious teacher. His Jewish started gaining a lot of respect among the people. When all the Jewish mixed together and reached Israel with his convoy from Egypt, he gave 10 commandments of God, i.e. teachings, by dying of which Jewish could remain happy and prosperous forever. He gave these 10 teachings on a stone, but got it written and kept in a social center where the 10 commandments of Supreme were adopted in the middle of the Jewish. In this way, the Jews got a fixed place to live after a long struggle. After some time, King Saul established the kingdom of Israel in Israel, which became their own empire of the Jews. In about 1000 BC, King David, he was the son of King Saul, who ruled over this people. His son King Solomon became the first powerful king. He became famous among the Muslim people as King Solomon. He built the first social worship center of the Jews, Temple Mount, in the capital of Israel, Jerusalem. This was called the First Temple or Solomon's Temple because the Jews prohibited idol worship. They used to do this, hence a stone containing the 10 teachings given by Hazrat Moses was kept in this temple, but within some time civil war took place here and the people here sat in groups of 2 in the form of the powerful Jewish of King Solomon Jew. There was happiness in his place. And lots of wealth showered, but only after 2 decades have passed. King Shalmaneser V attacked, in which again thousands of Jews were killed and the capital Jerusalem was badly looted. Somehow the Jews re-established themselves and their empire, but a major incident happened in 587 B. During this time Salem was badly ruined. At that time King Nebuchadnezzar looted the entire connected community and sent a terrible message. Those who survived were taken away as slaves by the king Nebuchadnezzar. They destroyed the kingdom. After this the children were now in the possession of King Nebuchadnezzar. The king Nebuchadnezzar took there the first holy temple was also composted, and during this time thousands of Jews were sent to exile for 70 years. Many fled Israel and scattered to every corner of the world. After this incident, both Jerusalem and the Jews. Soon after, a new empire was born in Iran, which is called Persian Empire. Persian kings, after conquering Babylon and Egypt along with many parts of the Mediterranean Sea, established Persian Empire in a large part in which Jews they got some freedom. They brought 7 slaves to Babylon, ordered them to go back to Israel and make Israel green again. They also allowed the Jews to build the temple again. After this the Jews came back to Israel, and he built his temple here again at the same place. This was called the Second Temple. Here the Jews started their life, but this place was always entangled in wars and attacks. After some time passed, Alexander conquered the empire. After the end of Alexander's kingdom, Israel came within the Roman kingdom by 63 BC. It was during the time of the Roman kingdom that Jesus Christ was born in a Jewish family. He gradually started becoming quite popular among the people, and he called himself the Son of God. Soon his followers spread throughout the Jewish community. People became very impressed by his words and started coming to see his miracles. The religious leaders of the Jews did not understand this. They started spreading things against Jesus and refused to accept Jesus as their adopted messenger. Given this teaching of Jesus of Nazareth refusing to be killed and hanging Jesus around 30 to 33 AD, as Jesus's followers started increasing in the Roman Empire, due to the increasing Christian population of the Romans, many Jews also started following Christianity. Due to this the religious leaders of Jews together made a war against the Romans, which is called the First Jewish-Roman War, so that the Christians could forced out from Israel. So that they could be driven away and get rid of the rule of Roman, people started forming convoys everywhere and started refusing Roman Empire rules. Then Romans surrounded the whole of Jerusalem from all sides and the food supply. They closed it so that the Jews were starved to death, after which they started killing some children and finally handed over the whole of Jerusalem. Meanwhile Roman also burnt down the Second Temple of the Jews, the only wall of which is still standing today. It is called Siege of Jerusalem. In this fire thousands of Jews' families were killed and their children were either converted or put into slavery. Atrocities against Jews women increased all the time, and Jews men and children even started losing their lives. During this period, Roman took over. Not only millions of Jews were killed, but millions more were created and taxes were imposed on those who were children. To erase the name and trace of Israel, Roman changed the name of Jerusalem to Aelia Capitolina. Meanwhile Roman destroyed a small part of Israel. The part which was called Judea changed the name of the place to Syria Palestina, which later came to be known as Palestine. Gradually, in the first such style, the followers of Jewish promoted Christianity. The Roman Empire ruled till 324 AD. But after that the Roman kingdom broke into pieces and finally the empire who was a part of the Roman Empire took over the throne of Jerusalem from 324 AD. The Roman Empire was ruled by Constantine, known as the Great Emperor. He was greatly influenced by Christianity and the God of Jesus, so he built a church in Jerusalem where the tomb of Jesus was and accepted Christianity. This church was named the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. After this the Time Empire accepted Christianity as his own. The Jews, who had now been declared the official religion, had not accepted the teachings of Jesus and had supported the crucifixion of Jesus, so now these people once again became the target of this new empire. Now the persecution of Jews began again. Thousands of Jews adopted Christianity, and those who did not accept it, if they started being persecuted again, then they would not delay in building their empire immediately. Hence during this time they made many such rules due to which the power of the Jews started waning. According to some rules, Jews could not keep any slave or servant for themselves. Marriages were also made between Jews and non-Jews, who could not create any kind of community worship center for themselves, nor could they keep a large number of sowers. There was a provision to punish those who did not follow all these rules. Their property was confiscated, and in many cases they were either put in jail or they were given the death penalty. While living such a stone life, after defeating the empire in 638 AD, now the army of Omar captures Jerusalem, after which the whole comes inside the Syria. In the present time, they have changed the name of the place to Palestine. From 638 to 100,099, Palestine remained in the Islamic period in which the Jews lived. During this period, millions of Jews became Muslims and started calling themselves descendants of Ibrahim. During this time, the Caliph invited the Jews settled all over the world to come back to Jerusalem. During this period, the Jews settled around them again moved towards Israel. However, due to wandering for the last 500 years, many Jews had settled in the areas around Africa, Europe, especially Spain, Germany and Russia, and had made their own small settlements there. During this time, the religion of Islam spread all around, and so did the Jews in the whole world. 1099, the Jews were living a good life, but by the 11th century, the Europeans were conquering every place while searching for sea routes. During this time, they destroyed the first 3 and started killing the people here. Apart from this, in other places of Europe where the Jews were already living, persecution also started against them. In fact, almost all the European countries started following Christianity, and they believed that the Jews were the ones who had crucified Jesus, whose flaws they felt were, even after 1,000 years, the price was still being paid. European Christians not only captured Palestine and Jerusalem but also poisoned the lives of Jews living here. They believed that Jerusalem, where the tomb of Jesus was, should now be taken away from the Muslims, and the Jews who were considered responsible for the death of Jesus should be eliminated. This period started from 1095 and continued till 1291. During this period, there was a terrible war between Muslims and Christians, which is also called the Holy War. Actually, Jews and Muslims considered Jerusalem as their holy land, but Christians also considered this place as their holy land and wanted their rights over it. In this war, Muslims and Jews together fought a war against the Christians to prevent them from going to Jerusalem. In this war, thousands of people were killed on both sides, especially those living in the Jews region. More than half of their number perished in this war. Apart from this, Europe, wherever they saw Jews, Christians started burning them alive. This lifestyle and slavery of the Jews continued till the arrival of the Ottoman Empire. In the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire captured Jerusalem. A large part of Europe was also ruled by these two empires, in which Jewish got some freedom. Jewish was not living a good life but still in Europe. The empire not only restored the Jews' religious freedom but also gave them a chance to live a good life again. He also tried to end the thorny Holy Land dispute in Jerusalem. In fact, he called the wall of the Temple Mount and the entrance of the mosque and Palestine. The entrance of the church was separated in the visiting area. Arrangements were made for everyone so that people did not attack each other in the name of religion. It was quite effective. There was no religious war between these 3 religions for a long time. But the fate of the Jewish followed them. Because of running away for the last 2,000 years now, the Jews had mostly settled in the parts of the Mediterranean Sea and Europe. But now in Europe there were anti-Jewish talks all around. Christians now found meaningless reasons and started doing this. At first this hatred against Jewish was given the name of anti-Semitism, which meant discriminating against Jewish people on the basis of religion and race. This discrimination was not of any normal level, but anti-Jewish people considered Jewish as an enemy of the society, and they were deprived of the social welfare schemes and benefits of the community or committee. They were kept away. Many times they were burnt alive in the name of breaking the rules of religion and practicing black magic. It started spreading in the 18th century, and the Jewish had to be dependent on every breath. Every day they were beaten, slaved, and messaged. Women, men, and children, even pregnant women, were gathered together and burned alive. Thousands of Jews started being deported from France and other parts of Europe. It was made compulsory for them to wear a yellow vest, so that people could recognize him socially. Jobs, social reservation, interreligion marriage. This thing was closed to just even those who were allowed. Those who converted and became Christians were also not treated well in Europe. Overall, due to anti-Semitism, Jewish was brutally beaten all over Europe. Things did not change with time, but Jewish's life became more difficult. It started happening that there were separate penal codes for them. They were killed on every small thing, and after a gap of a few years, there was a war to get them out of the country. Christians believed that Jewish only wanted their own well-being, and only about themselves. They think that this is why they should not have any right to live a social life. In such a situation, millions of Jewish people are now feeling troubled. Jewish got worried and started running towards America. Meanwhile, when the French Revolution took place in the 18th century, Jewish got a chance to live a good life during the time of Napoleon, but with the end of Napoleon, the last moment of happiness in Jewish's life also came. But his running away like this again and again, now their life started getting worse. Gradually the Jewish people started demanding their land. Their demand was mostly from the European countries because due to them the Jewish were becoming useless in modern times and where life was lost by running away. Were being forced to live. Due to the bad behavior happening in the world, the Jewish community all over the world started feeling that if they want to live a peaceful life, then they will have to create their own country. By the 19th century, talks of Jewish country started happening all around. During this period, a person named Theodor Herzl was born in Hungary in 1860. He himself feels against anti-Jewish and fueled the hatred of the Europeans. He started a movement named Zionism, and promoted his country's demand for Jewish. He wrote a book whose title was The Jewish State. In this book, for the first time, he asked the people living all over the world to make their own country. Herzl was a journalist by profession, and it was he who, for the first time in the 19th century, raised a residence for the people and their country within them. The ideas of the state first started influencing him all over the world. Then every year he formed a political committee. A Jewish political committee was formed which was named the Zionist Organization, and its first meeting was held in Switzerland in 1897. After this meeting, Jewish all over the world started sending money to this organization to support the Zionist movement. Within a short time, the organization spent a lot of money so that Jewish could have its own country. In those days, the slogan "Death to the Jewish" started echoing all over Europe, due to which a lot of fear was being spread among the entire Jewish families. In such a situation, Herzl started first. Jewish was asked to come to his homeland, Israel, which has now become a nation by this time after his invitation. A large number of Jewish started moving towards their homeland, Israel, and were confident in their hearts that it would be possible to remove anti-Semitism from Europe. And because of this they will always live a sad life. That is why they intensified the demand for Jewish state. On his call, Jewish's convoy again started moving towards Palestine. In this situation, as soon as it was possible, he moved towards this time first. Some people, due to anti-Semitism, crossed the desert on foot and reached this time first because in those days, the event of their migration from Europe to Palestine was given the name of Aliyah, which took place between 1882 and 1903 and which about 35,000 Jews returned to Israel, followed by another in 1904. And this happened between 1914, in which again about 40,000 Jews came to Israel. Meanwhile, World War I started. During this also about 40,000 Jews came to Palestine. But even after coming to Palestine, the Jews were living like a fugitive here. which these people did in the border areas. Jewish had a lot of money using which they wanted to flourish their city, school, hospital, and culture. Jewish wanted to build their country at any cost, and the British were well aware of this. In those days, the Jewish in America was very good. They were flourished and rich, and the same people were sending money to the organization. After America's entry into World War I, now the Jewish also became pro-British to some extent. Taking advantage of this, the British Empire boosted its weakening economy. Around 1917, British asked Jews for financial help from the people to meet the expenses of the war. In return, they said that if the Jews helped them with money and if the British won World War I, then they would make the Jews their own country, Israel. Jewish supported the British by believing in the promise of the British that they would help in those days. This proposal was made by Jewish and the British Foreign Secretary. It is also called Balfour Declaration. By trusting this promise, these people provided financial help to the British by going against the Ottomans. In this war, the Ottoman Empire was defeated and came under the control of Palestine and the British. When Palestine came under the control of Britain, the whole world as the Jewish started moving towards Palestine, the Jewish leaders saw that in order to give uniformity to the different committees, the people settled a city which was named City of Tel Aviv. Here the Jewish leaders themselves started using the language which was the old language of the Jewish. Efforts were made to integrate them again. Schools were opened to learn the language, newspapers and public announcements and prayers were promoted in the Hebrew language only, due to which the Jews became closer to each other due to the increasing population of the Jews and their occupation by the British. Conflict of dominance in Palestine between Arabs and Israelis, both wanted their rights on Palestine. They started feeling that the British might take away their land and give it to Jewish, after which the Palestine people issued a war against Jewish and the British Army. The British allowed only 10,000 Jews to come to Palestine in a year, but due to the increasing anti-Semitism in Poland, Russia and Germany, millions of Jews started coming to Palestine illegally without caring about any rules. Meanwhile, they acquired agricultural land in their city. Apart from this, Histadrut, which was a labor organization, was also formed. After this they also established an elected assembly, their national council, and Haganah, which was Israel's defense force. Started building their own country, but meanwhile in Germany. After fleeing, millions of Jews started returning to their country Israel. Due to the increasing population of Jews, the conflict in Palestine intensified, but this time they were in no mood to run away. They prepared their force so that they could fight against Palestine. There were civil war in Palestine from 1933 to 1938. Amin al-Hussein was now the president of the committee. He wanted to make friends with Hitler in order to kill all Jews. He wanted to go to Germany and join Hitler's service. This was done so that an army could be formed from Muslims in Palestine too, and the same treatment could be given to Muslims in Palestine as was being done in Germany during that period. Hitler never gave much value to Mufti, but Mufti considered make friendship with Hitler's right hand Adolf Eichmann. At the time of World War II, the borders was completely sealed so that it became impossible for Jewish to enter Palestine. In such a situation, other countries also closed the doors of their countries for Jewish. In 1939, World War II started, in which about 600,000 Jewish were killed in the Holocaust. And those who survived somehow fled to Israel. After going through the pain, now Jewish's wait was over. He again started putting pressure on the British Empire to create their own country. This time Jewish was among those who retreated. They were not from India. They picked up guns in their hands so that Israel could become an independent country. Now Israel put more pressure on Britain and started bringing Jews who escaped the Holocaust to their country. Many small conflicts took place in which both Jews and British died. But finally Jewish won the battle. In 1947, the movement Homeland for the Jewish people became very fast. After World War II, the British had become economically very weak, so they released a white paper and said that they would leave before the 15th of 1948, but here till now the Jews had not received the homeland promised to them by the British Empire, so war between Arabs and Jews was also inevitable, but the UN Commissioner took charge of the matter and proposed the division of Palestine. In the initial days, the Jews no one came in support of Jewish, but as soon as America voted in favor of the formation of the State of Israel, America also voted in support of Jewish, and then finally when the voting took place in that uncommission for the partition of Palestine and Israel, 33 countries supported Israel's partition plan, while 12 Muslim countries voted against. The one who had promised to give Jewish its own state remained neutral in this voting. Overall, 10 countries did not vote in favor of anyone. In 1948, finally the British Army released them under Resolution 181, telling them for the first time, but one of them the day before on the 14th of 1948, Israel declared itself independent. But Israel's happiness did not last more than a day because the very next day after the partition, Palestine attacked Israel. The reason for the attack was actually the uneven partition of Palestine. The population of the Jewish was very less in Palestine, and they mostly lived in the border towns of the upper part of Palestine. But when this partition took place, a large part of Palestine was given to Israel, due to which the Jewish were very happy, but the Muslims did not accept this. Apart from this, Palestine was divided into 3 parts and 1 Arab state. It was declared an international territory. Due to this partition, more than 700,000 Muslim people living in the lower part of Palestine became homeless and were forced to move to the newly created state of Palestine. That is why immediately after the formation of Israel, first Arabs defeated Israelis, in which millions of Palestinians and Jews were killed. The war ended in 1949, in which the Jews won, but this conflict never ended.